Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Sean back at it again with another deck profile. And today I have a request from somebody in the comments of my video to update this deck list for post Phantom Nightmare. I think that despite being a fire format, I think this deck has a loads of potential, and I think that this can really caught a lot of people off guard in terms of how they would play it, even though it's been like a minute since everything that Spright has shown up again. And I think that with after Phantom Nightmare, I think we have another tool in the toolbox for this deck that could push the deck even further. And then I will show you guys today the deck list that I would most likely be playing with Spright. So let's hop right onto it. First off, the standard ratios. We have triple Spright Blue. Best card in the deck by far. The deck would not be functioning without Spright Blue. So yeah, 3 Spright Blue, triple Jet. The pairing is just amazing. One red and then 1 carrot. So this is just standard ratio. Nothing has really changed so far. One thing that I've considered is bumping the red up to 2, but for now I think the ratio is completely fine. There's always going to be room for changes later. Like the tech choice with this deck is super flexible for all the rank 2 for all the level 2 link to rank 2 engine, so you can always like flex around and always find the perfect tech slot for you as well. So this is gonna be the fix 7. This fix 8 I'm gonna stick on always for the Spright. Triple Beaver and then the 2 Angler. Pretty straightforward here. Best engine to play along Spright. So Spright is technically just a level 2 engine dot deck. Angler is a +2, so if you have cards in your hand that can discard this card to the graveyard, you also gain the effect of Nimble Angler. So let's say you droplet using the Angler, it's also a +2 because to summon these 2 in the deck, and then it also forces your opponent's negations and all that stuff, which is really nice. So droplet along with this is an extender, which is really cool. So that's another piece of information that you can have. You can also like Foolish Burial it and also get the trigger effect, because as it's sent from hand or deck to the graveyard, it triggers the effect. 3 Fenrir. This card in this deck specifically is engine. This card in any level 2 is full combo, because this card can go first and second, and it's really efficient at breaking boards along with building boards. So Fenrir is just an amazing card in overall, especially in this deck. And then we have 1 Swap Frog and the 1 Newman. So I think that in this format, if you're going first, you need a specific win condition in your deck. And I think Newman is your specific win condition, because if you look at the decks in the format, like Labyrinth, Snake Eye Fire King, Snake Eyes, Branded, all of them converge onto big boss monsters that basically cannot be summoned under the effect of Testudo or Red Newman. So if you're going first and you're setting up a board, I think Newman is going to be your best bet by far. In terms of securing a win condition, the only way that they can realistically out it is if they hold their imperm, or if they droplet it. So it's another way that you can secure a win condition along with the Swap Frog to pair along with it, because Swap Frog can always dump the Newman from deck to grave. It's a bit of a brick to draw, but there's going to be always ways to send this card to the graveyard, and you don't have to specifically go into the Newman to still win games. So I think that is another thing to talk about. And then the new release card for Phantom Nightmare, EMP Meow Mine. This card says if a link monster is on the field, or in either graveyard, you can special summon this card. So basically, this card going first or second, and your opponent has the link monsters in the graveyard, it's a free special summon, which is absolutely amazing in Spright because it's level 2. That means this and any other level 2 is basically full combo, and you have not committed your normal summon yet, which is great. And then if a link 2 you control is destroyed, is sent to the graveyard by either is sent to the graveyard in general, except is sent to the graveyard or banish. Excuse me. I can banish this card from grave or hand, so it's also a hand trap to target a card on the field and bounce it to the opponent's hand. So basically, if a link 2 I control is sent to the graveyard either by linking or being banished off the graveyard. So say in the future, there's a situation where a link 2 monster is banished from the graveyard, you can use Mailmine effect from hand as a hand trap, or from graveyard as well. So even if this card is in graveyard, you can still activate that effect and just bounce a monster in the field, which is probably one of the best ways of removal right now because destruction effects are not particularly great. And anyways, alternative ways to get rid of monsters effect, like putting them in the back row like Snake Eyes, or bounce them into their hand, shuffle back to the deck, is always appreciated in this format. So EMP Mailmine is both a great extender and also a great way to break your opponent's board. So it's very versatile in this deck. Triple starter. Ever since this card comes back to 3, I think this is the only variant of Spright that plays 3 starter, other than Melfi Spright, Adventure Spright, all that stuff. The Runic Spright variants only play one of them, unless you're playing the pure Runic Spright. But I think that 3 starter is amazing. First off, to see this card coming back as well, ever since it's been a 2 for so long. 1 Gamma Burst and then the 1 Double Cross to pair along with it, and then the last few piece of engine is the Prosperity and Foolish Burial for the consistency. Foolish does play into Pot and Foolish. Foolish plays around draw, but Pot plays into draw in this format where there's a lot of draw. So sometimes like going second, you side the Pots out for sure if you're afraid your opponent has draw. Or going first if you think that your deck is consistent enough that you don't need the Pot or you're afraid of draw. I think it's fine. The deck can play through draw completely fine, but Pot makes them play into draw, so that's kind of the problem with Pot right now. But I think it's still a great consistency piece in this deck for sure. And then the last 12 slots, the reason why this deck is what I titled Hand Traps, right, is because of how many hand traps this deck can play. So these are the hand trap of choice that I'm playing. Draw here is flexible. I think that the problem with draw right now is that it's super good against rogue decks, but against like even like Snake Eye Fire King, right? They say that draw is a really good card into that deck, sure, but they have lines that basically plays around draw because draw is such a threat. So against those specific players that knows those combos, it doesn't really do much. It basically nerfs the end board a little bit, but it's still a good card to main right now. Honestly, at this spot, I think you could play either Bell or Valor. It would achieve the exact same. But the high impact cards here, I think the most underrated card in this hand trap lineup is definitely Nibiru, because they cannot play through both draw and Nibiru at the same time. So they have to pick one to basically play through. They cannot put up a board. If they try to play around draw, they're gonna play straight into Nibiru. So there's that. There's also that as well. And then Ash and Imperm are just standard for sure. Don't Ash the fire player. Kida will cook you. Don't do that. But in general, I think these 12 hand traps are extremely good and extremely flexible, even if you draw them in your hand. So Most of the Spright combos are 1 to 2 card combos, so the rest of the hand could be either these or extenders. So that's completely fine as well. Handtrap choice are always based on meta as meta evolves, but Spright is one of those decks that you can jam 12 to 15 non-engine slots in here and then be completely fine. So I think that's great. Extra deck, the boy, 2 gigantic Spright. You need 2. There's no need to say much. You don't need 3. In my personal testings and playings, you don't need 3 gigantic Spright at all. This is your 3rd gigantic Spright, personally, in this format, because Mannequin Cat, as I said, do not ash, because ashing this deck means that I have a Mannequin Cat play available, because it can always target your ash and get out my red and carrot from my deck. So also, like against Fire Kings, you can also like rip a fire from your opponent's graveyard out, so that they can't play because of Mannequin Cat's effect, which is really cool because it's a free summon. The moment the opponent summon a fire monster, activate Mannequin Cat's effect. So if you end on red, you can always summon carrot, and then you can keep playing through that. So which is really great in those kind of situations. The Mannequin Cat is just a really good card into this format in general. 1 Onibimaru, 1 Shadow Mosquito, and then the 1 Totally Awesome. I play Reaperdocus in this deck, as you can see. So access to Totally Awesome is always available. And the more I play Totally Awesome, the more I like it. In certain board state, where you can take, if say your opponent activates a spell or trap card, and then you just Totally Awesome and set it to your field, and then you can use it in your own turn to break your opponent board, basically. So like, let's say if they imprint one of my stuff in their turn, so this is like usually my end board would include this somehow, and then along with Newman, so they're Newman locked, and then we have the Toad to like, let's say if something tries to deal with the Newman, the Toad will take that card basically for you to use. And then last but not least is the OTK, the Zeus engine, and then the Typhon for the rest of the piece for utility. So just standard stuff here for Exceed. For links, 1 sprint, some list play 2. I think 1's enough. You don't need to go into sprint again after you use your angler. So I think 1 sprint is enough. Sprint's also a disruption on the field as well. The IPSP package, pretty good. No need to explain further. 1 Reaperdocus for the Totally Awesome line that you can play. 1 Dark, the Dark Charmer, and then the 1 Nightmare Phoenix. In this slot specifically, you can also play Hida as well, because this deck can also make Hida. So the 2nd Charmer here could also be used as well. You can always rip your opponent's fire monster from their grave and use this as link material, and so on and so forth. So, but Phoenix does have its uses in terms of like breaking pop-in back rows and all that stuff. So it's also pretty neat. And now for side deck, for this deck, always check the meta of your locals or regionals. Make sure what card you want to use in these kind of decks, but depending on what you're playing, it's always advised as well. 3 Shifter. Now, I think that this card carries Spright game 2 and 3 into those fire deck matchups. This card is the best counter to those fire decks for sure, because even with Soul Release and other cards, I think that it's worth it to draw the Shifter over the Soul Release in those kind of decks. And I think that, and also Spright have no problem playing under Shifter as well. So I think Shifter is completely amazing as a side deck piece in terms of like for those specific matchups that are weak into Shifter. Also, another deck that's also weak into Shifter is Voiceless Voice. The It has basically very great stability into those kind of decks. And then once you get into it, the more you play it, it turns off the sprint line, but you don't necessarily use the sprint line. When you're playing shifter, you play a different line instead, so you don't necessarily have to worry about that. Your end board would be a little bit different compared to usually, but shifter is completely fine. You can play under shifter like totally fine in this deck as well, and it's also a strong point in this deck. If you can play shifter in this format, play shifter. It's just broken. 3 bell for Labyrinth, Branded, Voiceless Voice, stuff like that. 2 Pancratops to deal with back row, and Floodgates also to deal with it's 2-piece of disruption. It's also an extender in Spright as well. It serves the role of Fenrir basically. This in a level 2. 1 red resonator for time. And then last but not least are 3 droplet for certain matchups where droplet's extremely strong, like especially Branded, where they're trying to set up the gimmick puppet line. Droplet is your friend, basically, to deal with the Sanctifier Dragon. And then you can also use the droplet, as I mentioned earlier, to pitch the Nimble Angler and then shut down your opponent plays. Also, that Nimble Angler will turn into 2 free bodies as well for you to basically full combo. And then last but not least are the 3 talents in the side. If you know your opponent is maining a bunch of hand traps, talents siding in, going first or second will always be completely fine. You side out the hand trap that's not good in that matchup, and then you side in the triple tactics talent. So that is it for the Spright hand trap deck profile. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to answer as much of them as I can. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.